Hey y'all, Robbie Falk here at Humphrey Coliseum. Just finished another week of Mississippi State basketball. The women played today, lost 80-60 to Alabama in a game that looked very similar to some other games that they've played this season, just very inconsistent from one half to the next. We've seen it early in ball games where they've been really good and then they fade. We've seen them start off really poorly and then come together in a quarter or a half, later on. Today that was the case. They played really poorly out of the gates. They trailed 26-11 at the half, or after the first quarter, following a 10-0 start to the game by Alabama. They were shooting the ball incredibly poorly. Alabama was very hot. They shot over 60% in the first half. Mississippi State was shooting somewhere around 30% in the first half, and 6 turnovers in the first quarter. 10 in the first half. That was huge. They fell behind 47-22. Scored us 22 points in the first half and give up almost 50. That's a recipe for disaster. And State just was never truly in this ball game. I thought they played with some spirit in the second half, which was good to see, but it was too little too late. I mean, they outscored them in the third and the fourth quarter, and they ended up getting the ball game, I think, went from 28 points down to 13. And so it was a nice effort in the second half, but it got pushed right back out to 20, and State falls in a game that they really needed. I mean, this team just does not have a resume that's built for the NCAA tournament right now. They basically have one really good win against Oklahoma, and this is it's the same kind of resume that they had last season. They had a big win against LSU, but it wasn't enough to get them in the tournament. That's going to be the case again this year if they don't find some wins here down the stretch. I mean, it's just not a resume that's built to get in, regardless of how good the SEC seems to be this year. State just doesn't have the wins right now to get in. They're sitting here at 4-7 in SEC play. The magic number for me is 8. I think they need to get to 8 SEC wins. That's 4 wins here. And you're going up against Texas, and you're going up against Vanderbilt. It's going to be very difficult. You got Florida, who's not very good, but you got to go on the road to play them. You got to go on the road to play Auburn, who's not very good, but like I said, that's on the road, and I expect a totally different game than what we saw when State blew them out here. That's a team that's been pretty good at home, so it's going to be tough for this team, I think. And, the question is how they play down the stretch here. That will determine whether or not they get into any kind of postseason. They're sitting here with 17 wins, which is good, but you can't finish with 5 or 6 SEC wins and expect you're going to get in postseason play. So, in this one, just kind of looking at the stats, Alabama 9 of 17 from 3. That was killer. They made 5 more threes than Mississippi State. And that's a big difference in the ball game. State was 4 of 18. They were 9 of 17. State shot 35% from the field. They shot 57%. So the shooting was really kind of the reason Mississippi State lost this ball game. But they also got dominated on the boards. This is the worst rebounding game I can remember from this Mississippi State team. They got out-rebounded 42-25 in the game. 19 assists and 30 made baskets for Alabama. They really shared the ball. State didn't share it very well, 10 assists. I thought State protected the ball really well in the second half. That might have been the best half of basketball they've played offensively from a protecting the basketball standpoint. 12 turnovers in the game, which has kind of been where they've been hovering really the last few games. They've started to protect the ball a little better, but it's come in spurts. They've had bad halves. They had 10 turnovers in the first half, and that really was a big reason they started to fall behind. They had just 2 in the second half. They forced 22 turnovers, and they had 16 steals. So State's defense really, I thought, did a better job in the second half. You're getting some really up-and-down play from Anaya Russell and Jacqueline Jordan, your 2 best players. They both finished with 8 points, but they were 4 for 20 from the field. Man, 1 for 10 for Jacqueline Jordan, 3 for 10 for Anaya Russell. DeBrisha Poe's starting to play pretty good basketball, 14 points in this game, but Sarah Ashley Barker just killed Mississippi State, 19 points on 6 of 12, 12 rebounds, almost had a triple-double with 8 assists. In essence, Cody was a real problem in the post, 17 points and 7 rebounds. And that's pretty much the game for Mississippi State. They just they just really were dominated in a lot of facets in this game, and the first half was killer. So the Bulldogs, they got to go to Vanderbilt, who will probably fall out of the top 25 this week, but this is a borderline, in and out top 25 team. They're well coached by Shea Ralph. They have one of the best freshman basketball players in the country. It's at Memorial. It's going to be a very difficult game for Mississippi State, but would be a big marquee win. This is another big opportunity for them. This can kind of keep them, floating a little bit, but it's not going to be easy for sure. And then you got to go to Florida as well. So we'll see what happens. We'll talk about the men too. I mean, just an absolute heart attack waiting to happen watching this team. They were able to find a way to win a road game against Georgia 76-75. Huge win for Mississippi State. As ugly as it was at times, this is such a big win. To go on the road to beat a Georgia team that's been really good at home, almost unbeatable at home. They lost to Auburn by 2 points, number one team in the nation. And they've gotten some big wins there. They beat Kentucky there. They've won big ball games. They're a very tough team, very physical on both ends of the court, and we saw that in this game. And this was a knockdown, drag-out, especially in the second half. I thought State did a really good job in the first half. To get road wins, I think that first half is so key. Whether you you keep it even or you stay within striking distance or you get a lead, the first half is really big. And that's what State did. They were really good from mid-range in offensively, and I thought they played pretty good defense in that first half too, and they built an 8-point lead, 40-32. You're feeling good about yourself going to the locker room, and that completely got wiped away in the first couple of minutes of the second half because Georgia stormed out of the gates and tied that thing up. What I thought was really impressive about Mississippi State in this game, and we'll dig into some of the things that were not impressive, every time it felt like Georgia was making a run or they were about to take a lead or take over the ball game, State answered every single time. 6 ties and 6 lead changes in this game. A lot of them came in the first half. In the second half, State led for a large portion of the second half. I think Georgia only led for about 5 minutes in this game. In the second half, it was, Georgia would kind of get on the verge and State would push it back out. And at one point, I think State got up, a couple possessions. And it looked like they were going to be able to close it out. And that same kind of game that's played out several times this year in regulation, it was playing out for Mississippi State again. This team really struggles to finish games in regulation, whether it is, getting the win or trying to come back and take the lead or whatever. They really struggle to finish it. Even in their 2 overtime wins they've had against Ole Miss and South Carolina, they were very poor down the stretch in regulation. They were poor in this one down the stretch offensively. They struggled to get the ball in bounds. They made some boneheaded decisions on some turnovers. They were missing free throws. They were missing around the rim. And it allowed Georgia to have some opportunities, but the defense really clamped down there in the final few minutes. They forced 1 for the last 7 for Georgia, and that's how State won this game. Georgia ends up shooting 46%, and that percentage really took a dip there in the last few minutes. I thought State's defense had a lot to do with that. I thought Cam Matthews was fantastic on the defensive end. Just 6 points in the game, but 4 rebounds, 6 assists. Kind of getting back to where he is as a player. Josh Hubbard continuing to play pretty good basketball. 16 points on 7 of 14. Just 2 of 8 from 3, but 6 assists and 1 turnover. He's really kind of transformed into a really good point guard for Mississippi State. That's not really a position. We've talked about it before that, State was missing Kanye Clary. I'm kind of at the point now where I feel like State's getting good point guard play from Josh Hubbard, and he's able to do what he wants to do. So I don't really blame point guard play anymore. And then Keyshawn Murphy has been very good down this stretch. 14 points and 8 rebounds in this game. I think he had a couple of blocked shots. You got 11 points from Michael Nwoko, who had the first 9 points. It was a perfect 5 for 5 from the field. You just don't get a lot from him deep into a ball game, but he gives State a good first punch. Usually see him get off to a good start, and that's what he did in this game. He had 9 points in the first few minutes. He only plays 15 minutes. I mean, you just don't see him late in ball games, and Chris James has talked about that before. The conditioning is just not really there for him, but I feel like you get a pretty good boost from him when he is in the ball game. Riley Kugel, 10 points, 4 of 7. I thought he was solid. RJ Melendez in a little bit of a funk, and I know this game with him going back to Georgia was, there was probably some jitters there, and the crowd probably got to him. And he finishes with 4 points, but he had some big plays down the stretch and had a big dunk there in the last minute or so. He and Claudell Harris are just – you're just not getting what you need from them from a shooting perspective. But hopefully they come out of the slump here pretty soon. But State shot 55% in this game. I thought the offensive efficiency was very good. They had 9 turnovers. They shot 55%, like I said, and inside the arc were almost automatic. They finished 6 of 20 from 3. So, let's see, what's that, 24 for 46? 24 for 48, or 26 for 48 from inside too. That's a very, very high percentage. State was getting good looks. They were very good mid-range. Just for whatever reason, they're just not a very good three-point shooting team right now, and hopefully that shifts a little bit. 32 points off the bench for Mississippi State to 5 from Georgia. The depth for Mississippi State is still there. They still have talented depth coming off the bench. A lot of that is Keyshawn Murphy and Riley Kugel. It was about neck and neck in rebounds, and that was expected. This is a very good rebounding Georgia team. They have size, they have physicality at a lot of different positions. State lost that 32-31, but it was basically even there. 46-28 in the paint, though. Mississippi State really dominated inside the paint, and they had 16 assists out of 32 made baskets, so about half of their baskets were assisted. So, the 6 of 18 from the free throw line is just abysmal for Mississippi State. That's got to be better, but I look at this, and anytime you get a road win in the SEC, especially against tough teams, and I think Georgia's a borderline, bubble team in the NCAA tournament, that's a good win to go on the road. It's a quad 1 win for Mississippi State, and they've had several of those this year. You have to really take the stats with a grain of salt, because it's a different world when you play on the road, and you're not going to be yourself a lot of the times. You have to take wins when you can get them, and Mississippi State stole a win on the road. That is all that matters here for this Mississippi State team who is trying to lock down the NCAA tournament berth. Right now, they are firmly in the tournament. I don't have any doubt that Mississippi State is going to make the NCAA tournament on this current path. Nothing's given at this point. If they lose the rest of their ball games, they're not in. But 5-5 at this stage, 17-6, and your metrics are strong. Your metrics are pretty good. Let's see if we can get their net up and see where it is right now. But a quad 1 win on the road against Georgia, it's a big one for Mississippi State. They're 29th, moved up a spot. 5-5 in quad 1 ball games. They're now 9-6 in quad 1 and quad 2 games. They have 1 quad 2 loss that came, I guess that would have been Butler that they lost to. It's nothing that's hindering them right now. They have 0 quad 3 or quad 4 losses, so they don't have really any bad losses. The Butler loss was not good, but it wasn't really bad either. Butler's not a very good team. They're 82nd. That's not a game that's going to kill your resume. For State, it's really about, you got to find a way just to keep gaining wins here. And looking at the schedule moving forward, you got a top 5 net game coming up on Tuesday against Florida. That's going to be quad 1 the rest of the way. Florida is 20-3. They just beat the number 1 team in the country. They're coming off of a really emotional win, going to Auburn and win that game. I think that's a good scenario for Mississippi State. I'm not saying that it's going to lead to a win. this is going to be one of the toughest games of the year for the Bulldogs. The way that Florida plays and the way they match up, it's just not a good matchup for Mississippi State or anybody. But if you do got to play Florida, you would like to play them coming off of an emotional win, a big win on the road. Maybe you get them at a high where they're overlooking a little bit, but it's hard to imagine they will be overlooking. But that's what you got coming on Tuesday night. You got a road game against Alabama coming up. That's quad 1. Texas A&M at home is going to be quad 1. Just scrolling through here. Ole Miss on the road, quad 1. Texas at home, that will be quad 2. They're 31 right now. I imagine in the end that's probably going to be quad 2, but almost every opportunity is going to be quad 1 from here on out. Oklahoma, we'll see where they are right now. I'm sorry for Oklahoma's 46, so that's on the road. You would like for them to jump up a little bit. They dropped 8 spots with their loss this weekend. You'd like for them to jump up a little bit to solidify. That is a quad 1. LSU, that is quad 2, I believe. LSU had a big chance. Yeah, they're 80th now. So there are not very many bad losses on the way for State. It really just boils down to, can they get the wins or not to really boost that resume. The resume is not going to drop a whole lot. If State can get to 8 or 9 wins in SEC play, that's probably going to be a top 6 seed with the way their schedule lays out, because you're going to have if your 3 wins are the potential quad 2 games, which is likely Texas, Oklahoma, and LSU. If that's your 3 wins and the rest of them are losses, that's going to be they're going to be quad 1 losses. That's going to be a resume that's probably a 6 or 7 seed for Mississippi State. So that's what it boils down to now, is how many wins can they get to firmly get them into the tournament, and also to give them a decent seed. And you really need a couple of quad 1s. That would be nice. If you can get a couple of quad 1s here, maybe finish with 9 or 10 wins in SEC play, Mississippi State's would be in great shape. But it's a team right now that I don't know what's going to happen with this team. The Missouri game kind of shocked me a little bit, the way it played out. That's the first time that I really felt like there's some major problems with this team. And that's the first time also that I felt like they just didn't play very hard. And I don't know if it was coming off the loss against Alabama, if it was, I think there was an illness with the team, with the flu. I hate using that as a excuse, and Chris Jans wouldn't either, but it does play a factor. That was the first time that I really felt like there was just a lack of toughness. I didn't feel like that at any point yesterday. There was a lack of toughness from Mississippi State. I thought they played tough. And you needed to. Now is a huge test. You got Florida at home, Ole Miss on the road. That's 2 monster games. You come home and play Texas A&M, who's a incredibly tough team under Buzz Williams. And then you have a stretch of games against Alabama and LSU and Texas and Arkansas. This back half of the schedule is going to tell you everything you need to know about this Mississippi State team. If they just barely kind of eke through it and they get 3 wins and they split their games or whatever here down the stretch, then I'm just not expecting a whole lot out of this team. If they get to 9 or 10 wins in SEC play, it's game on. And it's a team that I think can make a run. They're not playing great basketball, but they haven't really there hasn't been a pattern of this team just going through 4 or 5 straight losses. They'll lose a couple of games and they'll come back and get a win when they need it. They need to play with a little more consistency. You would like to see this team playing together more, and you don't have just 1 or 2 guys carrying the load. That's kind of the key here. They got to get everybody on the same page and playing good basketball, and we'll see if that happens here this week. Baseball coming up next week. We got that coverage coming with the series against Manhattan. You got softball playing this week. Softball, by the way, 4-1 this weekend. They played 3 ranked teams. They got 2 ranked wins against Texas Tech and Nebraska. Lost to a top 10 team in Duke, so this is a team that's gotten off to a really good start. they'll be at home this weekend as well. So a lot of exciting things coming up this weekend for Mississippi State. The men's basketball team going to be on the road on Saturday, and hopefully we'll have times for baseball pretty soon. But we got Chris Lamonis on Monday, and we'll have the reaction from that coming your way. And other than that, it's been real. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. Hope y'all enjoy Super Bowl Sunday, and make sure you get to work on Monday for sure. But other than that, we'll try to get back at some point this week and talk a little more basketball, maybe some baseball too. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. Subscribe to us at Maroon and White Daily. Download Thunder and Lightning podcasts on a day-to-day basis, and I'll catch you down the road.